I'm Deborah Foster, and I have the honor of serving as the chair of the Committee for the Future, which we lovingly call C4F. We have a fun and informative session planned for you that will require your engagement and your involvement throughout our time together. We will be conducting a few electronic polls, so please get ready to respond. The question will be posted on your screen. So that we can practice using this technology, let's try our first question. Quentin, can you put up the first question? We want to know the important question of whether you are wearing shoes. Would you please indicate yes or no to that question? And we are giving you 20 seconds to respond. We'd like to know if you are wearing shoes, ladies and gents.
If possible, can you please respond in the poll? I see lots of people responding in the chat.
In the chat, I'm sorry. Yes, the idea is for you to click on yes or click on no so that we will be able to see the responses. Okay, Quentin, did we get any?
Yes.
I don't see the question.
They don't see the question. It was on, the poll is not showing, Quentin, is what, there it is. Can it be seen now?
No.
You do not see the question.
All I see is welcome envisioning NCNW's future, committee for the
Okay.
future.
All right. Well, this is what we'll do then. We will not do our polls. I want to go ahead and get started because we've already lost some time. So thank you, ladies, again, for being patient, and we're going to move on. So to get us started and continuing on what we had hoped would be the theme of participant engagement and involvement, we'll begin our session with a little bit of self-care. And at this time, C4F member and newly elected Vice President of our young adults, Ariana Brazier, will lead us in our first activity. So Ari.
Yes, Quentin, will you please stop sharing the screen so that we can see each other? Thank you. So if you don't have your camera on, I'm gonna go ahead and ask that if you have the capacity to do that, please do turn your camera on. So that we can all see each other. And I'm going to ask that you sit up straight with both feet on the ground. And I'm going to walk you through a little bit of yoga, a little bit of an imaginative story. So again, my name is Ariana. I go by Ari, and I use she, her pronouns. So if you're not referring to me by name, you can use she or her. And I see people have turned their cameras on, so we're going to go ahead and get started, okay? Okay, because we're building a sustainable, inclusive, and Black joy-filled future, that requires that we move and imagine with our minds and bodies. And so we are going to open with this exercise. So again, please make sure that you're comfortable, you're sitting up straight, and both feet are on the floor. We're going to stay seated for this exercise, but we are going to actively imagine and move with our bodies. So we're beginning our journey with a walk. So we're moving our legs as if we're walking. But before we get on our way, please reach to your right and delicately grab your best NCNW special occasion hat with both of your hands and put it on your head just right, okay? Because we are on our way. And so we're moving our feet again, and we're moving right out the door. So we've opened the door and we've walked outside, and we are taking a deep breath. We're reaching up towards the sky. We're greeting and thanking the sun for waking us up this morning. And we are bending down to touch our toes for carrying us through what will be a beautiful day. And we're back up. All right, sisters, brothers, and siblings. Time to make our way to the local section meeting. As you're walking and you're smiling and you're feeling yourself and you're breathing deeply and fully, you notice two small Black girls double dutching on the sidewalk. You hop a few times through the ropes, So get your little hop in. You know how to double dutch. If not, do your quick little single rope jumps. And you thank them. Thank you, girls, as you continue on your way. See you later, sisters. Okay, we're walking. And wow, we are so excited to see our NCNW family today. Across the street, you see 2 Black teenage girls handing out flyers about a social justice initiative that they're starting. You wave them over in the special way only Black women can. Hey girl, come through, over here. And as they walk over, you take another deep breath, because you have a wonderful idea. Hey little sister, you say. Let me all see you say, hey little sister. Hey little sister. Why don't you join me at our NCNW meeting? We would love to support you and your initiative. They agree, they link arms with you, and we're walking down the street. We're walking. Now we're truly on our way. About a block from our building, you see 2 Black girl college students chatting up current events and debating the merits of the upcoming elections. You take another deep breath. You release it. And you wave them over. Hey, sister. I like what you're talking. And you say, I have a wonderful idea. We're about the business of exchanging knowledge in NCNW. Why don't you come with me to our NCNW meeting? They agree and they link arms. And now the 5 of us are on our way. So we're walking, we're moving, and we're saying, hey, sister. Let me see you say, hey, sisters. Hey, sisters. Just as you walk up to your building, you see 4 of your most beloved NCNW sisters. You turn to your right and you say, hey, sister. You turn to your left and you say, hey, sister. You turn again to your right and you say, hey, girl. And you turn again to your left and you say, hey, girl. You hug your sister on the left and you hug her tight. You hug your sister on the right and you hug her tight. And you're just so excited to be here and to be alive that you hug yourself and you hug yourself tightest. Before we get moving, we fix our hat because you can't walk into the meeting with a crooked. You turn behind you and you pull your sisters with you and you say to them, all right, sisters, we have arrived. You open that door, you walk through that door into the space created just for you. You take a deep breath and you release it. And as you're deeply breathing, you look around the room and you see all of these smiling, beautiful Black faces. And you think to yourself, I am because we are. There are Black people thriving in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Ari. Could we have the slide presentation back up? We hope you enjoyed those few moments to reflect and maybe recharge a little bit and reimagine the future of NCNW. Now to the business at hand. The Committee for the Future was appointed by our 7th National President and Chair, Dr. Johnetta B. Cole. The charge to the group was to look closely at NCNW to see what needed to change in order to best position the organization for its future. Specifically, how NCNW can build on its historic legacy and be prepared to deliver on its mission to lead and empower women of African descent, along with their families and communities. These specific areas of interest to Dr. Cole were increasing the use of technology making sure that NCNW has a seat at important social justice tables, and creating a more intergenerational organization, which you've already heard quite a bit about. We now are seeing the formal charge, and I've gone through that. May I have the next slide, please? We've been working for the last year to answer some of the questions, and just wanted you to see the beautiful faces of the members of the committee. Some of us are new, some of us are seasoned section leaders, we are educators, we are HR experts, we are attorneys, we are nonprofit leaders, we are corporate leaders, we're members of sections, we're members of affiliate organizations, and we are all members of the National Executive Committee and Board of Directors. We bring a variety of perspectives and experiences to this work. I'd like to introduce you to each person that you will hear speaking today. I'm going to do it all at once so that we can just go through our presentation. And just to tell you a little bit about myself as the chair, I am an NCNW Life member. I am a past National Recording Secretary of NCNW. And there are several other involvements that I have had. So for the sake of time, I'm gonna just move on a little bit. Next, we have the co-chair of the committee, Cheryl Poinsette Brown, who is from Denver. And she is an attorney trained in litigation and human resources. She works as a mediator and organizational consultant through her company, 5 Smooth Stones, HR Strategies and Mediation Services. Cheryl serves on the Vision Statement Committee and the Personnel Committee. Next, you've already met Ariana Brazier. She describes herself as a play-driven community organizer and educator. She's a doctoral candidate at the University of Pittsburgh in English, Critical and Cultural Studies. She is the newly elected president of the Rankin-Mon Valley Pittsburgh section and an active leader in NCNW National Young Adult work. She's the founder and CEO of ATL, Parent Like a Boss, Incorporated, also known as Parent Lab, whose mission is to enhance generational literacies through play in underserved African American communities. Next, we have Dr. Helena Johnson, who is a retired higher education administrator, having worked for 20 years at the University of Redland, California, and the San Bernardino Community College. Currently, she is the newly re-elected Vice President of NCNW's Executive Committee and Board. She is the chair of the Vision Statement Committee. She served on the National Nominating Committee and is an active NCNW leader in California, having been appointed the Southern California convener in 2014. Dr. Johnson is also a charter member of the Pomona Valley section. Regina Majors is from Indianapolis, is a life member and a member of the President's Circle. She also happens to be the chair of the newly created National Resource Development Fundraising Committee. Her national committee service includes the Membership Committee, BHRP Committee, and the 2020 Convention Planning Committee. She is currently the chair of the Indiana Life Guild and the membership chair of NCNW Indianapolis, the Indiana section. One member not able to be with us today, Ms. Sandra Young from Detroit, Michigan, is the president of the award-winning Detroit section. She currently serves as an assistant national recording secretary on the NCNW Executive Committee Board. So with that, we're going to move right into taking a look at our agenda. Next slide, please. All right, so as our agenda comes up, you'll note that we have already covered the first 4 items listed, and we'll be moving through an agenda that includes a look at the methodology supporting our work, sharing the feedback from the many sources that inform the recommendations that you're going to hear, and a strengths, weakness, opportunities, threats, and trends analysis. We will get, may I have the rest of the slide, please? Thank you. We will get you, excuse me. We ask that you let us go through the entire presentation, but feel free to use the chat box to make note of your questions or just write them down. We will definitely try very hard to get through this so that we can get to your questions at the end. All right, next slide, please. I want to begin by just telling you a little bit about the methodology. Knowing that there would be 6 of us leading this work, we immediately decided that there needed to be a cascading communications and feedback approach to cast the net as wide as possible. This is not just the thinking of 6 people. We wanted to hear as many voices as possible, and we used several elements to collect the feedback and inform what you're going to hear from us today. There were 4 major aspects of, and you see it there on the slide under process. We conducted interviews with current and past presidents of NCNW, including Dr. Cole, Ingrid Saunders-Jones, and Dr. Barbara Shaw. We spoke to the senior advisor to the chair, Secretary Alexis Herman, our NCNW executive director and staff, representatives of the affiliates, the general membership, section leaders, younger women, and our men through the Franklin Associate Leadership. There were also a number of surveys. We looked at surveys that had been conducted in the past, as well as conducting a new survey among the membership, and I hope some of you had the opportunity to give us feedback through that vehicle. An analysis of strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, and trends related to Black women was conducted through secondary sources. And finally, we commissioned a research project to create a report on Black women trends using consultants who looked at secondary and existing research from many sources, such as the US Census and the CDC, to provide information on about Black women. We're excited to have that trend data, and it will not only guide the work of the Committee for the Future, but eventually we hope to make that available to the leadership, the membership, and to you sections. The valuable information that we have can be used to support decision-making and to determine the implications for NCNW as it relates to fundraising, membership recruitment, programming, and of course, the NCNW social justice agenda. Later in the session, you will see specific examples of some of the data that we have. This first phase, which we refer to as the listening phase, to obtain feedback and ideas from the entire NCNW family, was intentional, thorough, and viewed as the most important part of the process. C4F member and NCNW Vice President, Dr. Helena Johnson, will now share what we heard during the process. Helena?
Thank you, Deborah. Initially, we would like you to know that all of the respondents agreed that the National Council of Negro Women mission statement is clear and relevant. And the responses that we received from you continuously spoke to the organizational unity, family, and collaboration. There were several headers that we used. If we can have the next slide. There were several headers that were used to identify what we heard. The first and foremost was increased brand recognition. And through social media and all avenues of communication, visibility and voice on issues assuring that NCNW is at the table. That we need our name to be there to have that assurance for our reputation. Number 2 was to build on the 85-year-old name recognition that has been created and to remember our history. Number 3 was to continue to build value in our awareness of sisterhood and service as it relates to all women of African descent. The second header was to become a learning culture. So we heard from you about training and NCNW rules, policies, and standardized structure. We heard about the awareness of social justice and public policy matters that would be shared with all. We talked about our constantly changing technology and social media. We also heard from you about being nimble and prepared for change. We heard from you about leadership development and succession planning. And we also really were excited to hear about the Reconstruct the Dorothy I. Height Leadership Institute. Next, we talked about operating with best business and financial practices. And you talked about expanding, updating, and investing in human capital, providing organizational transparency throughout NCNW, exploring new revenue sources, and financial base beyond membership fees. Then you talked about assessing member relationships, structure, and service. You told us about identifying value propositions for members, structures, and levels. You talked to us about empowering members and strategic partners and affiliates. Keeping membership informed with continuous, consistent communications. You spoke to us about introducing methodologies that would let the members know that what they are doing is important and in line with national guidelines. You also talked about articulating a strong advocacy and action agenda with clear understanding of decisions made for advocacy and social justice issues while mobilizing the membership. We want to use advocacy and social action agenda in recruiting and attracting members as well as strategic partners. Become known for specific policy agendas to increase engagement and unity for our mission. Then you talked about pursuing strategic partnerships in addition to affiliates. You asked us to consider peer organizations as affiliates. You also talked about the way that we differentiate ourselves by our longevity, our rich cultural history, our open membership requirements, our local boots on the ground network, and our focus on women, families, and communities. Then you told us about increasing participation in membership and recognition for younger generations. You talked about membership recruitment with emphasis on younger generations. Recruitment development specifically for younger members using formats that they are comfortable with and are using and sharing. And to talk about member recognition at events that are not fundraisers. Also to explore the many opportunities that we have for growth seen by the membership by engaging younger generations and collegiate groups using our membership communications. Finally, the Committee for the Future will continue to gather valid data from various legitimate sources, share it with the membership, and introduce practices for NCNW's future success. And now we have a second poll question.
Helena, we're not going to do the polls. There was a problem with them. So if we could just move on.
But Helena, if you could read it and ask people to put it in the chat, that would be appreciated.
Okay. The question is, what you heard reflective of your perspective and experience? Can you relate to what we shared? So any of those things that resonated with you, please share that information with us. And we thank you for participating. I will now introduce Cheryl Brown. She will talk about our strengths and weaknesses.
Okay. As you heard from the methodology, what we did is collect information. We had a plan for whom we wanted to collect from, et cetera. And we've now told you what we heard. What we've done with the information since then is conduct a SWOT. Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, and the newest T is the trends. So first, you're seeing the strengths and weaknesses. And this is what we gleaned ourselves from all of the sources and information that we heard from. What I want to stress for you is strengths and weaknesses, opportunities and threats are often flip sides of the same coin. So I don't think I need to reiterate too much for you what our strengths are. I think we all know, we heard yesterday that the broad reach of the organization is 2 million women strong. We have a whole host of powerhouse members, a number of whom you've seen in action in this convention. We have historic leadership and the legacy of the organization and its reputation over time, the connections with our affiliates. These are major strengths that were noted. The weaknesses, some of which flow from some of that, are that we can be kind of myopic and look at ourselves without seeing that there are other organizations coming up and that are competition for NCNW. What we heard a lot of is that we need more communication around how decisions are made, what the hierarchy is, what our succession planning is, et cetera. And we need more consistency across the nation in our messaging and action. Our member profile, which you'll see more of, I'm going to ask Ari to post this in the chat for you. You may remember this page from one of the Sisters Magazine issues that was the membership survey results. And you'll see from those results that the organization is more than about almost 70% over the age of 45. We are very well educated. We are predominantly working, but we are not known more broadly than that particular demographic and could do more work there if we wish to. Can I have the next slide, please? We saw in all of this opportunities, and we saw, quote, threats, and the opportunities are huge. We have so much focus these days on Black women and the power that we bring to this society, to the issues, that we just need to harness it and unleash it more. So the threats were that choosing renown and legacy over staying focused on relevancy. What we've heard a lot in this convention, though, is that the urgency is there. I think that we will be able to deal with this going into the future. Our social media presence and understanding of technology, our capacity and capability in that area, we want to strengthen that. We see that as an area we need to be mindful of in a time when social media is becoming so much a part of everyone's everyday life. So again, we've got to stay focused on those things. I would be surprised if any of these are real surprises for folks, but I'd like to hear from you on that in the chat. Our next poll question would have been, poll question number 3 would have been, do you feel we captured the major opportunities and threats, strengths, and weaknesses? If you could, please use the chat box for your comments on that. So at this point, I'm going to move on to the final T that's done in this sort of analysis, which are the trends, which again, you have areas that we wanted to look at in terms of trends around Black women are, who are we as a membership? Who are Black women in the United States and world? And who are we in relation to others in our society? So we looked at a number of areas. We looked at demographics, age, education, economics, and health. This first page are the demographics and age, and you'll see that Black women in the US are a pretty young group. The median age for women is 36 years in this country. 54% of Blacks in America are under the age of 34. 12% of Black females in this country are foreign born. We've included this LGBTQ because the census is coming up. This, for example, there are greater, more demographics are being looked at now. We can see who we are and see which sort of categories Black women fit in. We are keeping up with these numbers more in the world, and it's important that NCNW do so as well. There are so many more slices we could have taken. We could have looked at, you know, high school dropouts, et cetera. We have all of that in the some 130-page PowerPoint presentation that Deborah mentioned is included in the data we collected. This is what we wanted to share here. If you have questions, you can put them in the chat. We'll try to answer that in the Q&As. Can I have the next page, please? Okay, we wanted to just draw again certain numbers that struck us. There's so much more we could do with it. In the economics, pre-COVID, our unemployment rate was 8%. We're looking to see and follow on what has happened to Black women during this pandemic to see what happened, what the numbers look like going forward. It is still alarming to see a quarter of Black women in this country live below the poverty line, nearly a quarter, and nearly a third of girls under 14, nearly a third of our female children are living under the poverty line in this country now. That we thought was important to point out. Interestingly, Black women, this is true for whites as well, women in this country are outpacing men in terms of enrollment and completion in four-year degrees. We looked at health, and it was interesting to note that our death rates under the age of 44 tend to come from unintentional injuries. Cancer is killing Black women from middle age to seniors, and heart disease is the predominant cause of death for women over 85. This number that we are 3.6 times more likely to die from COVID has changed since we had these numbers. I looked it up yesterday. It's down to 3.4 times because the numbers for white Americans is going up. As I think we are paying attention to the fact that that COVID is affecting us at a much higher rate. We account for almost 22% of the deaths from COVID when we're only 12% of the population. And I hope that what that number has impacted our community and we're paying more attention. Why the number is changing and going down, we don't really know yet, but one may be that we're paying more attention to wearing masks, to taking the precautions, socially distancing, et cetera, than perhaps some white communities have chosen to do, given they thought wasn't affecting them for a while. So those are the trends that we chose to pull out as an example for you of the data that will guide the leadership of NCNW in making decisions for programming, for policy choices, for what we get involved in going forward in the future. And at this time, let me turn it back over to Ari.
Thank you. Can we get the next slide up? So now we're going to look at some preliminary recommendations that we as a committee have compiled. You'll see that they're organized under subheadings. So I'll read what's on the screen and I will elaborate. Under leadership, development, and training, we recommend that we build a culture and network for continuous learning and improvement. Leadership, development, training, convention workshops, effective practices, sharing, and succession planning would all fall under this culture and this network. By a culture and network of continuous learning, we mean that we must be conscious of the fact that there is always so much more to learn. If we are to be consistently improving and expanding, we must be receptive to insight, feedback, and direction from various internal and external sectors, individuals, and generations. Under young adult engagement, we recommend integrating young adult and collegiate members into and throughout NCNW's leadership and executive committees. And we recommend the creation of a committee, or we recommended the creation of a committee that solely prioritizes and advocates for young, adult, collegiate, and youth members. As of September 10th, we have received approval from the National Executive Committee to create a committee on young adult and collegiate affairs. I, alongside our former National Third Vice President Shara Denton and Manhattan President Ariana Jamerson, will be spearheading this committee and providing a presentation tomorrow on the approved transition plan for collegiate to community-based membership, for which this committee will be responsible. So if you are available, please be present tomorrow as the three of us share more about how this plan will be executed and put into action. Can I have the next slide, please? Thank you. Under organizational effectiveness, we're recommending the consideration of a franchise model that will leverage the power of the network, particularly NCNW sections within that network. We argue that we need a tightly coupled few key areas: brand, membership standards, and an advocacy agenda. We recommend the standardization of NCNW social justice and social change advocacy agenda. Basically, what we mean is that we think we should have the same agenda nationally and locally, and this agenda could then be enacted and executed differently across sections, but we're all on the same page about these practices and these causes for which we are fighting. Presently, increasingly, more people are turning to social media to identify niche groups and participate in a culture of activism. Many people, if they're passionate or even just curious about certain social justice issues, they're going to social media and they're finding organizations that are focusing in on specific issues. So if we establish ourselves as an organization with a clear social justice agenda, not only will that assist with membership and recruitment sustainability, as in more people will stay with us because they are clear about why they're here, the agenda will also become a part of our brand. More people will look to us for certain causes and certain approaches to these causes. We must seriously think on a few questions. We are known as an organization of Black women for Black women, but what are we doing as an international organization within our community? What are we doing as sections, as individuals? We can answer those questions amongst ourselves, but as a whole organization, as one with an international name, what are we known for? And what do we want NCNW to be known for as we move forward? And then finally, what national and or global changes will be pivotal to our legacy? So when you think about the longevity and the long term of NCNW, what do we want our legacy to be known for? Under member relations, member services, and products, we recommend the development of a stronger relations and services capacity. We suggest that we review product, services, and member benefits. So this becomes another method of distinguishing ourselves from other organizations. That is by offering unique services and products for our members. As an organization, we should reevaluate what we have the capacity to offer our members and how we can capitalize on these offerings to ensure that our members are receiving an invaluable experience within this organization. Next slide, please. So this one speaks to what I'm seeing a lot of conversation about in the chat when we talk about partnerships and expanding our membership and being more inclusive. Under strategic partnerships and membership expansion, we first recommend the pursuance of strategic partnerships that advance the mission in addition to affiliates. So we're looking at men and non-Black women's organizations and other organizations that might have a similar mission or doing similar work for different demographics and different communities. And then secondly, under this heading, we have expand membership and or affiliates to include people across race, gender, and that's including Black, LGBTQIA, so lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, intersex, or asexual, non-binary and gender fluid individuals and groups, so people who do not necessarily identify as either male or woman, as well as different religions and spiritual traditions and socioeconomic status. So if we were to be inclusive and equitable within our membership, we should be more critical within our agenda as well. We should be asking ourselves if members from these different communities, particularly like LGBTQIA communities and organizations, or from other religions or various nationalities and education levels are represented in our membership? Are we being inclusive? Are we recruiting people across experiences? And is that represented in our membership and our leadership? We cannot advocate for inclusive changes in our communities if we do not address the gaps in our own sections and our own organization internally. Additionally, ensuring that we are conscious and educated on the issues that are affecting people across experiences, such as the aforementioned groups, ensures that our social justice agenda remains relevant and continues to move us into the future. So we have another question here. I will also post it in the chat. Are there additional recommendations that should be included? So you have what we have offered here. Are there additional recommendations that should be included in our proposals and our agenda? So I'm posting that in the chat. Please, if you have other recommendations, share those with us. And I'm not sure, but is Miss Regina with us? Not yet? Okay. Well, we can keep it moving. If you can.
Here. I'm here.
Great.
I'm
Well,
here.
next slide, and I'll pass it off to Miss Regina.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much, Ari, for that introduction. I am going to discuss the summary of our findings. And I am getting the slide going here. One second. Highlights and themes of what we found was the reputation, the branding to increase utilization of social media and technology. And we're doing that more so. We have the website that has been updated, which is good. We've looked at roles and relationships to leverage role as the convener of organizations, pursue strategic partnerships with affiliates and other organizations to achieve this mission. The relevance, we're going to move beyond older women. We're looking at legacy membership profiles and activities, outreach to younger women, women of color, and the LGBTQ community, and et cetera. The results and representation is to create a shared action agenda to advocate on social and racial justice issues of importance to Black women. We're rethinking the NCNW structure and the leveraging power of sections and affiliate base that makes sense. Standardized operations that make sense. So the sections are alike. They're pretty much doing the same things, and they're going to share information on what's working for them, what's not working, and get more of a community involvement with the sections. The reinvesting in learning and training for the national staff and cross sections. And this is just going back to the leadership training, things that we used to do in the past. We used to have the Dr. Dorothy Height leadership training workshop. So we looked at ways that we can help women to become leaders. Resources, identify new sources of funding to achieve financial stability. With that, we're talking about the Fund Development as well Committee, that we will talk about a little later. And then the next slide, please. And it just drew a blank. Is it up? I don't see it. Okay, the next steps. Where do we go? Support the work of the Young Adult Affairs Committee and Vision Statement Committee, which is a great thing. That's what we're supporting. Ari is very involved with that, and so we're thankful for her. Looking for great work to how we can partner with them. And we're going to finalize our summaries to the Executive Committee by mid-November 2020. We're going to present the findings to the Executive Committee, and we're going to incorporate recommendations into the plans and share with membership as appropriate. This committee is by no means over. We have a lot of work to do. We've only just begun. Any way that you could help and partner with us, if you have any suggestions, please let us know. But we look forward to continuing the work for the committee for the future. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you, Regina. And if we could have our next slide. Basically, we wanted to end our formal presentation with a quote from our founder who said, "If we have the courage and tenacity of our forebears who stood firmly like a rock against the lash of slavery, we shall find a way to do for our day what they did for theirs." And we just felt that that summarized very well what our task and challenge would be. So with that, what we'd like to do now, and to the next slide, please, we'd like to open it up. You've been so patient, and we certainly appreciate you hanging in here with us. And I did put it in the chat, but I do want to mention that the slides that we've presented will be available in as part of the documents from the convention. So we definitely understand that you might like to have them to share with others or to think about some of what we've talked about. Here we did put up the contact information. So if for some reason those slides don't show up quick enough, you can contact myself or Cheryl Brown, and we would be happy to send them to you directly. So at this time, we would ask you to please, those questions that you've been holding on to, I will ask Ari if she will get us started with any questions, or thank you for the supportive comments and the feedback, which we will also read once the session is over. So Ari, can you get us started? Are there any questions in the chat box for us that we could begin this part of the session with?
Yes, we have two so far. The first one is from Belinda Pedroso, and they write, Mary Jane McLeod Bethune became one of the most important Black educators. She founded a set of educational standards for today's Black colleges, and they ask, what is our recommendation on ensuring higher education for minority students?
Okay.
Would you like me to read the other question that we have so far, or would you like?
Well, shall we just take that one first?
Okay.
Okay. Well, I would say, let me ask if any of the panelists would like to answer the question. And Quentin, if you could take down the slide and put us back up, that would be great. Thank you so much. Any of the panelists care to take that?
I think that this is Helena Johnson. I think that in response to your question, that there is no specific curriculum that needs to be set up for higher education. It's the fact as to where an individual wants to go and the methods that will be available for them to get there. We have a lot of issues in our K through 12 at this particular time in preparing our children and getting them ready to move on to the higher education. As I spoke to someone a while ago, and they were talking about they are pushing trade schools, but they have always pushed trade schools. 75% of our populations have licenses or certificates. They don't have college degrees. So I think that sometimes we put the cart before the horse because we need to make sure of where we're going. We need to see what our goals are, but we need to have that step-by-step process there. And that's part of what we're talking about, even for our organization, so that we can crawl before we walk.
And if I could echo that and add back to the methodology and the purpose, the charge to this committee is to bring together the information that will fuel the decision-making by NCNW. So the committee did not make specific tactical recommendations such as you're describing with this, but I appreciate you saying that. We've got to add that because this workshop is actually another data set for us to bring to leadership. So, but the question is, as Dr. Helena just said, is what are the facts? Who are we? Where are we? Where are the issues? Bring the data to leadership, see where we are, and then make the decisions, the organization with input from, with all of the sources as to where we want to go, set that goal, and then put in place the plans to get there.
Thank you. Ms. Janice also put a recommendation in response to the question in the chat as well.
Go, you want to read it? Go ahead.
From Miss Janice, she recommends that we continue resuming the HBCU college tour and establishing a scholarship fund that will support a scholarship fund and advocacy for more human financing options. So that's from our ED.
Great. All right. Thank you,
Add to that,
Miss Mathis.
Thank you so much, Miss Mathis, because that emphasizes something else that we didn't say a lot about, but there are many things that NCNW is already doing that have it ready for the future and that are things we need to continue and build upon. And that's an example. And that kind of tactical programming, the things that are already happening, are things that we must continue as we move into the future, because the time is urgent and we have to be addressing so many things and so many fronts at once. So I appreciate that input, because it allows us to point that out, that we are already doing things that position us for the future that we've got to continue and strengthen.
Great. Thank you. Ari, do we have a second question?
Yes, we have plenty.
Oh, good.
I'm taking questions from the HOVA app and Zoom chat.
Okay.
So the second one says, greetings from Stafford, Fredericksburg area. The question is, what type of plan can be put in place to encourage a passing of the baton and the development of leaders in our respective sections? For example, a defined shadowing, mentor, coaching program approach for current leaders in the development of a future leader.
Great. Well, I would say that again, what these questions are really affirming for us is that we heard what was important to you. And I think, again, that's another example of work that would need to be done, that our role has been to identify that, and then ideally it would be passed on to a standing committee of NCNW that would really dig in and decide what has to happen with leadership development, with leadership training and succession planning. So it's great to hear that these things are important and of interest to you.
And to that point, Ari, can you give a preview from tomorrow a little bit? Because I know that's gonna be on the agenda. So that is an issue that is at the forefront of what we've been talking about and what is going to be ongoing work.
Yes, ma'am. Actually, that addresses one of the following questions about the Young Adult Committee. We're still in the development phase. As I mentioned, it was a very recent approval that we received. There will be some age criteria involved. So if that might address one of the questions that was posed, there will be an age criteria because we want to make sure that this is as representative of this young adult demographic as possible. And the plan will consist of different phases to be implemented in both collegiate and community-based section, again, in order to ensure that bi-directional relationship is being established and is being sustained across sections and across individuals. So when a student graduates college, the transition to a community-based section doesn't only feel like a logical next step, it feels like an emotional support as they transition into the next step of their life. So again, we'll be laying out that plan tomorrow, and then our proposal and presentation will come directly after the college students and our youth present on the work that they're currently doing in their sections as well.
Great. Another question, Ari.
How can people or members become involved in the work that the Committee for the Future is doing? Are people able to join? How do we support this work?
Okay. Would anybody else like to take that? Okay. I would go ahead. Helena?
You're good. You're good. Go ahead.
Oh, no. Dr. Johnson, please.
No, I think that this is one of those committees where we will always be taking on different areas of concern. That's part of the whole process of doing research and gathering data, is because you know that you need to continue to build. One of the things that we're working on now is integrating the vision statement committee along with the Committee for the Future, because we're talking about the future of the organization. So knowing the difference between what is really being asked and what those perceptions are versus the realities is what's going to make the difference as to who's there, who wants to be a part of it, and how much work, because we've worked pretty hard on this committee. We've done a lot of work, those surveys, that research, talking with all of those individuals, and then making sure that it was all validated properly. So it's more than just a bunch of individuals getting together and having conversation. There's a lot of work involved. So we are always open to folks who would like to get some more work done.
Thank you, Dr. Johnson. Ari, do we have another question? I think, okay, we're good on time.
Yes. Another question is, do we have a committee dedicated to fostering and maintaining strategic partnerships? And this person is speaking specifically to other than current affiliates. Are we seeking to be more inclusive across the different demographics that were previously mentioned?
Anybody like to take that one? Well, what I would say as it relates to some of the issues, that a lot of that work has taken place in the context of the social justice agenda. So as that work has been looked at and identified, that's where some of that has taken place. But to your point, part of our suggestion here is that it become a more intentional, robust part of the whole organization, that we obviously need strategic partners for our social justice agenda, but we may also need them for other purposes as well. So if I take your point, I would say that that is very much in line with what we're suggesting, that needs a more holistic, robust process associated with it. But there has been some great work done in the context of the social justice agenda, and there may be the opportunity and need to expand it beyond that. What else do we need partners for?
And if I might add to that, at the beginning.
Okay, Sting, I'm getting it ready.
Hello?
Hello?
Okay.
I'm sorry, could someone mute, please?
Unmuted.
Yeah.
She's muted. Okay, and at the beginning of the work we were doing, one of the things we thought about when it became clear that additional affiliations, strategic partnerships, et cetera, would be in order as we move forward in the future. We looked at the bylaws and we find that the possibility is there. The vision was there. When you read, I think it's section 8 in the organization's bylaws, you're right that there needs to be a deeper look, as Debbie has pointed out, and that may be a task force. That may be something leadership wants to define more specifically. So that's one of the next steps. That's some of the work that has to be done as to how does NCNW wish to take that on and make those decisions as to who and how it will take on additional strategic partnerships going forward.
Okay. Well, I'm looking at the clock and I'm so sorry to say we're at that point where we have to conclude this portion. You've been wonderful. Please stay with us. We have a special closing in mind, but before we do that, I certainly want to do a few acknowledgments, and starting, of course, with our wonderful leader, Dr. Cole, who appointed this committee shortly after she was elected the first time. We're delighted that she's been reelected. And of course, our executive director, Janice Mathis, she's everywhere. I don't know how she could be on this webinar with everything else, but that's the way it's been. Janice, we thank you, we love you, as well as the staff. Crystal Ramjour, who is a new name to many of you, our Chief Administrative Officer, has been an incredible partner in our primary staff connect to this group. And of course, our whole executive committee board, our consultants. And so we also have to thank the people who were interviewed, all of you who completed those surveys, that this would not have been possible without the time taken to give us the feedback that we asked for. I have to take a point of personal privilege and thank these awesome ladies that I've been on this journey with. C4F has been a delight in my life to have worked on this, and we're not done. So as everybody recognizes, we're not done. And finally, just want to thank you all for hanging in here with us, choosing this workshop against all the other choices you had. And we hope that we did enough to let you know that we're listening. Hopefully we're on the right track, and look forward to more from us in the coming months. So at this time, I'd like to ask our wonderful bright light, Ari Brazier, to please close us out at this time.
Okay, thank you. And again, shout out to my committee. I love and so grateful for this committee. Before we conclude, we wanted to hold space for what has been called the NCNW Emoja Circle. I first learned of the Emoja Circle when I was a facilitator for the national program Save Our Cell Sisters, also known as SOS. It was my favorite program in NCNW, and I would argue that it's the reason that I'm able to be the leader I am today in NCNW. I was trained in this program back in 2012. And so typically the exercise we're about to do is done in a circle with everyone holding hands, but we're gonna ask that we use the chat to do this. And so emoja means unity. And before you check out of our workshop, we ask that you drop something positive in the chat that you want your NCNW family to leave with. So we ask that you'll share your name and whatever that positive attribute or characteristic or blessing that you want to leave your sisters and your family with. And we ask that everyone else affirm them in the chat by saying Ashe, which means yes, or amen, I affirm that. And so we encourage you to stay a couple minutes to read all of the blessings that are being sent your way and the blessings that you are receiving. And I'll just begin by sharing aloud, and I'll also post it in the chat, that I'm Ariana Brazier and I offer boundless energy. So everyone would affirm me by saying Ashe in the chat. So again, we encourage you to stick around just for a few minutes and look at all of the blessings that are being left to you. I can even read some. We have be encouraged, be the change you want to see.
I would say no man is an island. No woman is an island.
Thank you. Thank you. All we have is sister pouring love and light into the over our lives.
Thank you.
Peace, be your sister's keeper.
I give you all a touch of irreverence, a touch of rebelliousness to bring to the work that we do so that we keep it fresh and keep it just a little bit spicy.
That's perfect. And my parting words would just be, as always, the greatest of these is love. The work that we do out of love. And also, just as we have our difficult days, love is the center and the anchor.
Ashe.
Okay.
Ashe. So thank you all for being here with us. Thank you all for your patience. Thank you all for your energy and your affirmation.
Thank you all. Enjoy the rest of the convention.
Yes, thank you.